It is important to note that when you have inheritance, some functions are not inherited from the base class to the derived class. So all of the normal functions that you set up in the base class are inherited in the derived class, but the exceptions are some of the, I guess, not so normal ones, which is base class constructors. Of course, they have a different name, as we have seen. We have to set up our own base class constructor, and it was the same thing in Java. So Java was the same situation. Destructors are not inherited. So far in our example, we really haven't even needed a destructor. The default destructor, one that you get that does all the default activities, will work, and we just happen to redefine it. The book doesn't even use a destructor in the examples in this chapter. The copy constructor and the assignment operator are two important things. So far we haven't had to deal with it because, once again, in the example that's used in the book with the employee, salaried employee, and hourly employee, the default copy constructor does the right thing. So remember that if you don't define a copy constructor, a default one is generated, and it turns out a lot of the time it works. Remember, the rule of thumb is when you have pointers in your class or dynamic objects, probably there's a good chance you should set up your own copy constructor and your own assignment operator too. Remember that it is defined, a default one is given to you for free if you don't define it. Okay, so let's take a quick look. If you look at the employee class, there's no pointers, there's no dynamic memory, there's a string object, there's a statically allocated, also a data member for a primitive data member for the net pay. It's just a double. So therefore, you really don't need to do anything with the copy constructor because all of the default things will work. Same thing with salaried employee. No data members that are pointers, no dynamic memory access, dynamic memory allocation, things like that. However, let's just say that we want to redefine the assignment operator. So let's just take a quick look at that. How would we do that? So you would say employee ampersand operator, and you would say the right hand side is a const. It's the same type, employee. You can't have it assigned to, well, you can, but you don't want to assign different things to employee. Like you can't assign a person to an employee. Alright, so RHS, let's say. So you might say, well, how would you do this? One thing you could try is just say return a new employee object, and that would sort of work. But notice, and this is the interesting thing about this class, is it has two data members that it can initialize using the constructor. For example, I can take the name of the right hand side, name. Remember, I can access this even though it's private because I am in the same class. So since I'm in the same class as employee, I can access private data members. Remember, you can do that in Java too. Alright, we can access the social security number. Okay. So this actually might compile too, but it's not complete. And let's see why it isn't. Okay. Oh yeah. So we have to say const. Otherwise, we could get all kinds of weird situations. Okay, so there we go. We say const, left hand side equals, and then the right hand side. So now it might look like we're doing the right thing. Okay. So However, remember that we have a third data member, which is the net pay, which is not initialized by this by this constructor, and we did that on purpose because it was supposed to be something that's initialized by things in the subclasses or derived classes. So because of that, we cannot do something like this. RHS dot net pay, right? So if you try to do that, save it, we cannot do it. So what do we do? Well, the answer is, of course, remember that whenever you try to overload the assignment operator, chances are you will need a copy constructor. So how does that look? Same as, sort of similar to the other constructors. Employee const employee, and of course remember to use pass by reference the other. Right, this is a usual pattern, and we will say so we have to just say, what were we trying to initialize? Name is equal to other dot name. Social security number is equal to other dot ssn, and the third one was net pay. Okay, so once we've done that, what do we get? Well, here's what we get. We can just use the copy constructor. So the assignment operator, if you try to overload it for a class, goes hand in hand with the copy constructor. So we can use the copy constructor, make it nice and simple. We don't have to use the usual constructor, we just use the copy constructor. And we are set, I believe. Let's hope this compiles. Okay, there we go. So let's take a quick look at where we are. The exceptions of things that are not inherited are constructors, of course, destructors. This is new in C++. Copy constructor and assignment operator. Well, see, I guess all of these things are new in C++. And we've seen this before. We've used copy constructors. If you don't define one in the subclass, that is derived class, a default one is generated. And to tell you the truth, for this particular example, we really don't need this. This is just not necessary because this is all generated by default. All of this is actually the right, C++ does the right thing. Okay. And these two go hand in hand, copy constructor and assignment operator. So remember that overloaded assignment operator and copy constructors that are not inherited. It can be used in derived class definitions. Typically, they must be used. It's similar to how derived class constructor invokes the base class constructor. So I'll say that again, we don't really need it for this example, but this is just showing you how to do it. If you ever need to, remember that if you use dynamic memory allocation, dynamic objects inside your classes, then chances are very good that you would need to redefine assignment and the copy constructor. So here's an example. How would you set up the derived class assignment operator? If you have inheritance and you have dynamic memory allocation, you will need to do this. So let's set one up. Let's set up just one of them. Salaried employee, let's say. This is simple. I guess that's okay. So how would you set up? First, you would want to set up the copy constructor. So how would that look? It looks sort of similar to a constructor. but remember you always do const. It turns out you don't have to do this, but this is just a very good thing to do. I always use other. You don't have to. So do you need to make this? Oops. Do you need to make this const? A lot of times you can get away without it. Do you need to make this pass by reference? A lot of times you can get away without it, and it just gives you a slightly less efficient code. Okay, so now what do? You say, so here's where we have to look at the notes. So typically we just initialize data members, right? Salary is equal to other dot salary, but we actually have to make sure that we call the copy constructor of the superclass, base class. So how do we do that? We can call that in the initialization section. Okay, so if you have a copy constructor for a derived class, you use in the derived class, you use the same things that we normally do, but you use this initialization section. So the base class copy constructor is invoked after the colon in the initialization section. It sets the inherited member variables of the derived class object being created later on, so in the method body. And then you can note that you can use this as a parameter to this initialization section. How can you get away with this? Because these are different types. This object, this is of type derived. We're using that to initialize something of type base. Well, this is where polymorphism kicks in. Remember that this object, which is of type derived, since derive is an extension of the base class, this is okay. Alright, so hope if you got that. A lot of that is stuff that we've seen in Java. So here's how you would do it. You would say the base class employee, and you would just do other in this case. And then you would initialize the data member. So, but remember, you can just as well put this in the initialization section. Actually, most of the time, this is preferred. So rather than doing it in the assignment statement, you can do it here. Alright, so there's our redefinition of the copy constructor, and now let's do the redefinition of assignment. Use the operator, and you say const salaried employee RHS, and what do we do in here? Let's take a look in our notes. Here it is, assignment operator example. If you have a derived class which is derived from a base class, you say the derived class operator overloading takes something from the right hand side and it calls the overloaded assignment operator of the base class first. So let's go ahead and do that. So here we would say employee operator and right hand side. There we go. And then we have to copy over any of the derived data members, like for example salary, and then we'll be all set. But that's the basic idea.